Good mor- Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Finance. Folks, quiet please, quiet please. Good morning and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Finance. At this time, we ask that you silence cell phones and electronic devices to minimize disruptions throughout the hearing. We thank you for your cooperation. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to today's Finance Committee meeting. I'm Council Member Justin Brannan. I have the privilege of chairing the Committee on Finance. I've been joined by Council Members Kagan, Hudson, Farias, Carr, Powers, Hanks, Barron, Osei, and Lewis. And Moya and Sanchez are on Zoom. Today, our committee will be voting on the following items: the Council's FY24 operating budget, a revenue budget modification, a transparency resolution, an Article 11 resolution, and finally, Intro 524A. First, we've got the Council's FY24 operating budget and the accompanying OTPS schedule. The Council's fiscal 23 proposed budget includes $75.7 million for personal services and $24.3 million for OTPS, which stands for Other Than Personal Services. Next, the revenue budget modification recognizes $1.69 billion of new revenue in FY23 and authorizes the appropriation of that new revenue to increase the budget stabilization account by $1.46 billion to prepay FY24 debt service in FY23 and increase the general reserve by $225 million to maintain funding. Next, we've got the transparency resolution, which sets forth the new designation and changes in the designation of certain organizations receiving local aging and youth discretionary funding and funding pursuant to certain initiatives in the budget. As with all transparency resolutions, council members will have to sign a disclosure form indicating whether or not a conflict exists with any of the groups on the attached list. If any council member has a potential conflict of interest with any of the organizations listed, they have the opportunity to disclose the conflict at the time of their vote. As a reminder, please disclose any conflicts you may have with proposed subcontractors used by organizations sponsored by discretionary funding. These disclosures must be made before the subcontractor can be approved for funding. Disclosure forms must be completed and submitted prior to the vote on the transparency resolution and may be emailed to Julius Caranda, who is also present today in chambers, to take your questions. Next, an Article 11 resolution will authorize a full 40-year Article 11 exemption to support preservation of one 241-unit co-op building in Councilmember Richardson Jordan's district. The amendment will allow for renovation work and refinancing the building debt to allow maintenance to remain affordable for current and future shareholders. Finally, Intro 524A, sponsored by my friend Councilmember David Carr, would authorize a new interest rate for primary resident homeowners who enter into payment plans with the city and stay current on those plans. The new rate would be set by council resolution at a later date, following recommendations from the Banking Commission, and would be open to property owners with a combined income of no more than $200,000 and whose property has an assessed value no more than $250,000. Property owners who are not paying their outstanding taxes would still be charged the standard late interest rate. I want to recognize Councilmember Carr if he has any remarks on his bill. Councilmember?
Thank you, Chair Brannan. Good morning, colleagues. Intro 524A is going to resolve a long-standing policy dilemma that we as a council face every budget year and have faced for, I think, longer than most of us can remember, which is how do we set an interest rate that punishes and deters tax scofflaws, people who just don't want to pay their tax bills, while at the same time not punishing homeowners who are simply struggling to make ends meet. Maybe they had a bad year, they lost an income earner, or someone lost their job, they're seniors on a fixed income. Maybe they're, as my grandmother would say, they're house rich but cash poor. We want to make sure that folks who are trying to make an earnest effort to dig themselves out of a tax arrear hole can do so without the city making it more difficult by giving them a higher interest rate. So this bill is going to allow us to do that later in June when we do the interest rate adoptions. we're covering 80% of homeowners potentially based on the income threshold. And so I think that this is a really, really good piece of legislation that's going to help a lot of New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs. And Chair Brannan, I thank you for all of your support and leadership in this issue. I thank the staff. I'm going to be thanking them individually on the floor later today. They did yeoman's work in making sure this got done, and I'm just so pleased that we're voting to report it out this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Member. Are there any other comments or questions from my colleagues on any of the items today? Councilmember Lewis.
Sorry, I really wasn't trying to make this long for you, Chair. I was just looking through this packet and noticed that Welcome NYC does not have a Haitian organization to provide services. I think we've heard from thousands of Haitians that have migrated here from the border that they need assistance with case management. I've met with organizations like Hope that's located in Queens and Councilmember Williams' district that's asked over and over again for additional support services so that they can provide support across New York City. And I got a call from finance that they would add a group and they did not. So I just want to highlight that for the record, that while there's some amazing groups on here, we have some Haitian folks that do need additional case management services as opposed to just legal services, and I'm hoping that a change could be made in the next transparency resolution. Thank you so much, Chair.
Work on that. Anyone else? Councilmember Barron.
The debt service, 200,000 of that is going in the reserve budget?
Yeah, I think the total amount was 225.
It's going in reserve.
Yeah.
I just want to go on record saying I oppose that. I think it should be used to offset the cuts to all the agencies that the mayor is engaging in, as opposed to putting it in the reserve account that already has $8.3 billion. So while I support prepaying the debt service, because that'll help us next year, but it should not be put into the reserve account.
Okay. Anyone else? Also been joined by Councilmember Brewer. Okay. With that, I will ask Billy to call the roll.
Good morning, William Martin, Committee Clerk. Roll call vote, Committee on Finance. All items are coupled. Chair Brannan.
I vote aye.
Moya.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Powers.
I vote aye and want to congratulate Councilmember Carr on his bill, which I think is a common sense solution to a problem we've been talking about for a long time. Thanks. I vote aye.
Lewis. Barron.
Aye.
Brewer. Aye. Barrios. I vote aye. Hanks.
I vote aye. Congratulations to my colleague, Councilmember David Carr.
Hudson. I vote aye. Osei.
I vote aye, and I want to congratulate Councilmember Carr. It goes to show that when you're not an extremist, you could still get things done within this body.
Sanchez.
I vote aye. Congratulations, Councilmember Carr.
Thank you. Carr.
Just like to disclose on the record that in the transparency resolution we're voting on today that we're funding CUNY, and my spouse is a student at CUNY. And with that said, I vote aye on all.
Kagan.
I would like to disclose that my daughter is a student at CUNY College. Also, I would like to congratulate my colleague, Councilmember David Carr, and also I'm voting aye.
Thank you. By a vote of 13 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and
We've also been joined by Councilmember Diana Ayala.
Councilmember Ayala. Pardon me.
I'm the deciding vote. I don't know. Let me think about this now. I vote aye.
Thank you. All right. By a vote of 14 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, all items have been adopted by the committee.
All right, we're going to leave it open, but everyone can go, right? Okay. Everyone except Keith can go.